Well, water is probably one of the most important things we human beings need, probably with air and food. And we're going to talk about water and what Michigan State University is doing in a new alliance to make sure our water is safe for everyone. We have Joan Rose back with us on MSU Today. Joan is the Homer Nolan Chair in Water Research at Michigan State University. Joe Lattimore is the director of the Michigan State University Extension Center for Lakes and Streams. And Amber Pearson is an associate professor in MSU's C.S. Mott Department of Public Health. Great to have you all here. Let me ask you each, tell me a little bit more about your interest in water, your research, why you're passionate about this topic. Joan, how about you first?
Sure. I study water quality and health, and I thought, when I started my career, wow, I'll just go out and take my water sample. I'm a microbiologist. I'll look at the microbes in there, to go back to the laboratory. But I found out very quickly that when you're out in the field collecting water, there's people all around you that care about what you're doing, what you're finding, what it means, what we can do if you find, contaminants, and how we protect our health. I think later in my career, when I got involved with waterborne outbreaks, it really touched me how important it was to go into a community where children had died because of contaminated tap water. And then I thought, this is so important. It's got to be a global movement. And I've been involved in global water issues ever since.
Indeed, one of MSU's most renowned researchers on any field. So good to have you here. Joe, a little bit more about your interest. Obviously, it's lakes and streams, but what's your interest in water and the safety of it?
Sure. So I grew up here in Michigan and spending time fishing and splashing around in our inland lakes and streams near our house and in northern Michigan, and always enjoyed that. Didn't think about it as a career right away, but had some really good internships as an undergraduate student where I got to experience the science of swimmer's itch in Higgins Lake and looking at other water quality issues, and really got very interested in, finding out, wow, I could make a job out of this. I could work on protecting these resources that I enjoy so much and see so many other people enjoying as well and caring about. And so fast forward to back when I was a graduate student here at MSU, I worked on the Red Cedar River, did a lot of work on the Red Cedar and understanding its health and the threats to it, but also the good things in it, like the 34 different species of fish that live in the Red Cedar right here on campus. And again, people would stop by and ask, what are we doing? What are you catching in there? Why are you in the river? And so that connection between the science and being able to work with the public on conservation issues around lakes and streams has really driven my career from that point.
Cool. And Amber, how about you?
I have two main streams of research, one related to household water insecurity. So yes, the safety of the water, but also having enough water and having affordable water and having reliable water. So all those dimensions of water insecurity that affect people's experiences, everyday experiences with water. And coping and adapting to those conditions, and the very real consequences for not only physical health, but also mental health. And I also have a stream of research looking at the therapeutic aspects of water. So visually engaging with water, including on our Great Lakes, and the mental health benefits of both the auditory and visual exposure to water.
So what are some of the issues that make this alliance important, both maybe Michigan, the country, and the world? What are some of the key water issues? Are there just so many it's hard to pick a few?
Yeah, well, I was looking back at all the headlines that had been in the New York Times and Washington Post and other newspapers around the world. And it's pretty daunting when you start looking at that. It's everything from climate wreaking havoc with our infrastructure and our health and our water quality. It's toxic slimes covering lakes. It's you're going to get sick if you swim in our lakes and rivers. These are the headlines you see that we're hearing. Also, forever chemicals are in the headlines. Microplastics are in the headlines. And of course, globally, we know that we are far from meeting any of our goals and targets for access to safe water and sanitation around the world.
Yeah, and right along those lines too, what we also see is people sometimes loving our lakes and streams to death is a phrase that we hear sometimes, where we want to be around the water. We enjoy that. We appreciate that. But sometimes we're not thinking about what's good for the water system. So for example, a lake that used to have natural shorelines and a forested coastline and that kind of thing. And then now if you look at it, it's lawns and seawalls and homes right up to the water. And where are the frogs? Where are the birds? Where are the fish? We lose those. And it's not the system that we were drawn to in the first place. So we like to work with the public and help people understand and do research into how we can have both, how we can have access to those resources, but still conserve those resources.
And Amber, from your perspective, why is this alliance important right now?
Yeah, well, in addition to what Joan said about climate change affecting infrastructure, we've also got just declining infrastructure, aging infrastructure throughout a lot of our cities, and we know that very well in the post-industrial Midwest here, that this is a massive issue in how we're going to provide safe, adequate water to households in cities that have half the population that they used to have.
So it's called the MSU Water Alliance for Teaching, Engagement, and Research. Let's talk about sort of the vision and the mission and what you hope to do, some of the objectives.
Yeah, so, for the last, really, I'd say 20 years, the faculty at MSU have, wanted to bring their expertise from the various disciplines together and to solve some of the water crises and water problems. And we've had a number of initiatives over that time frame at MSU, and it's always been faculty-driven because we have so much expertise. And I think we've hired new people. We've funded research, interdisciplinary research around areas. And all of this has now culminated in a plan to produce a program that is sort of an amplifier, a connector. The Water Alliance will bring all these different aspects of expertise we have in water together to solve problems. And so it's going to amplify, it's going to connect, it's going to enhance the research expertise we have here in the water arena.
Joe, what would you add?
Oh, from the extension perspective,
Yes.
right? So we're out all across the state in counties and communities, and we hear from the public and from Michigan residents about their concerns and the issues that are facing them. And we see issues in our lakes and our streams and our watersheds, and we don't always have the answers. Through the Alliance, we can connect with researchers here on campus to answer some of those emerging research questions about our water science across Michigan, and also from a social science perspective, understanding how do we communicate this information best to the people on the ground who need it, decision makers, natural resource managers, and our residents.
And Amber, all of this will help with the public health perspective you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, water intersects, and I think MSU is uniquely placed to look at some of these water issues because water intersects with agriculture and food security and public health and engineering and data science, and all of these aspects, connect. And so the Alliance is one way to bring those researchers together, the science together, but also communication to the community. And, we're at a place right now where there's a lot of mistrust in science. And there's a lot of mistrust related to water and water safety. And so this is a great opportunity to kind of bridge that.
So the Water Alliance is going to be quite unique in addressing these three missions of the university, right? The education mission, the research mission, and the engagement mission. And in each one of those, we hope to enhance our research grants. And the scientists are very interested from the local to the global. So people want to do the science right here in Michigan, here in the Great Lakes, and they want to do science that reaches, has a global impact. So we'll be trying to enhance that. On the teaching side, we are focused on a new program called the Water Cubed program that's going to take graduate students and train them in data science, AI, machine learning, all this cool stuff, as we investigate water issues, but with an eye to equity, And so the Water Cubed is to bring data science, water science, and social science together. And so we'll be bringing the next generation, into this arena to help solve the problems. And I think, as Joe's already mentioned, we really want to focus on not just engage science, but engagement with the communities around the Great Lakes, and really take a leadership role in that.
With Extension helping Michiganders be even more aware of these issues.
Absolutely, right? And it goes both ways. The communities also help us become more aware of the issues, right? We're here in East Lansing or in our offices, and we, of course, are connected to the resources and to the issues. But, it's important not only for us to communicate what we're learning here at MSU through our research, but also to be listening and bringing that back to MSU and saying, hey, here's what we're hearing from Michiganders about what they're concerned about: water quality, drinking water, public health, that kind of thing. What can we here at MSU through the Water Alliance do to help move those forward?
And Amber, you want safe drinking water for everyone, probably, that public health perspective.
Yeah, safe and adequate,
yeah.
And reliable and trusted. And, to combat potentially some of the adaptive strategies that people have employed because they mistrust the water, like reliance on bottled water, exclusive reliance on bottled water, which, makes sense when water sources aren't safe, but long term, these may not be the greatest solutions long term.
Well, I think we have a great opportunity to address this idea of the intersection between water, food, and health. And they're very, very connected. And this whole idea of the One Health, and I know Amber's been very involved in this idea of One Health, is expanding across the world and across the globe. And so animal health, right? Both our domestic animals and our wildlife, and wildlife is a little bit more difficult to really understand, and our human health, but then that environment piece. And I thought it was quite interesting to note, just the exposure to nature improved our health. They were finding just even pictures for city dwellers, it would lower our blood pressure and, all these other, benefits. And so really taking this holistic view and bringing the One Water and One Health together to look at how we improve the planet. I think we have the expertise here to take that on.
Yeah. Joe, from the Lakes and Streams perspective, some challenges and opportunities?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm serving as the director of our Center for Lakes and Streams at MSU Extension, and that's a new center. It's new for us. We've been doing lake and stream work for a long time, but the timing is really great for connecting with the Water Alliance here, because what we are really focused on is not just doing the outreach, but also advancing that outreach with science and, really connecting with faculty on campus on these issues. And so the timing works out really well for us as we attack complicated issues like working on development around shorelines, or invasive species is a big one for us. And what are the impacts of these species? How do we prevent their introduction? Once they're here, what do we do about it? That kind of thing. And what kind of impacts are they really having besides just being here? There's so many questions that we have, and so many questions that the public has about these issues, those are just a couple of examples of how we're really excited. It can be complicated to make those connections, though, even when we're all housed at the same university. So having an alliance like this that is focused on bringing us together and helping us meet colleagues that are working on similar issues and can help us address these complicated questions is really got a lot of opportunity for us right now.
The land grant mission at its finest. Amber, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think being based here in Michigan, we're well positioned in two important ways. One is we're surrounded by the Great Lakes. And this has, across the U.S., the Great Lakes are going to become increasingly important, and we need to be thinking about long-term strategies for protecting those resources for the U.S., but also we're connected to Canada here. And the second reason is that we've had in our state an an international crisis that's been brought to everyone's attention in our own state. And it doesn't mean it's the only place that, there's been contaminants in water, including lead contaminants in water, but it's brought this to global attention. And so we're well positioned to react to that, to respond to that in a way that protects water security, not just for Michiganders, but globally.
I think in the next year, we're going to see the faculty coming together and elevating the science we're doing around water. And not only that, but how it's applied, how it's taken up, how it's used. I think it's a great example, Higgins Lake. Here we've got a study that was done quite a long time ago on how septic tanks were, contaminating our waterways with a human sewage marker. Well, that science and other science, which was developed at MSU, has led to policy discussions and changes in attitudes around communities and putting in sewers and protecting their lakes. Higgins Lakes is one of those that has made this change. And so I think we're going to see more of that kind of thing. And I certainly want to encourage all faculty and students and postdoctoral scientists to get involved in the Water Alliance. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to be involved in various projects and various activities that are really going to elevate and demonstrate, showcase what MSU faculty are doing.
Joe, some key takeaways for listeners.
Well, sure. One thing that we didn't touch on a lot, but Joan just mentioned slightly, was the benefits to our students. I'm really excited about the teaching aspect of this alliance, and there is going to be so much opportunity in water science in the future, and this is really going to position our students to learn the science, to learn about the issues, to learn about how to communicate about science, whatever aspects interest and excite them. MSU is going to be a great place for students who are interested in water issues and water science moving forward because of some of the outcomes of this alliance.
And community members that want or need their issues addressed, come forward and be part of the alliance. This is about engagement with the community.
Well, it is the MSU Water Alliance for Teaching, Engagement, and Research. You can find out more by just going to research.msu.edu. But one thing before we go, how would you suggest each of us becomes a better steward of our precious water supply?
It always surprises me that the public doesn't really know where they get their water from, and they don't know where the water goes when they flush their toilet. So I think just understanding that human coupled, engineered, natural water cycle from your own perspective gives you new insight on what you might do to protect water and your favorite beach and your favorite fishing stream. So I always encourage people to gain more knowledge about what's going on in terms of water in their own community.
And I'd build on that. Here in Michigan, we're so fortunate to have so much water. The Great Lakes, as Amber mentioned, and all of our inland lakes and streams, it's easy to take them for granted. And if one starts to, one lake or one river section starts to degrade a bit, we can just go find another one, quite honestly. And we need to maybe shift our mindset a little bit about that and take a moment or two when we're near the water on the coastline, if we enjoy fishing or boating or just viewing, looking at the water, that kind of thing, to take a few extra minutes to really think about it and appreciate it and observe it, and then maybe reflect a little bit on what we can do to protect those resources, because taking them for granted is not going to conserve them for the future. We need to all be doing our part to protect them.
Yes, Amber?
Yeah, and water is part of the production of lots of goods and services, and we as individuals can think about our water footprint in what we purchase and what we consume.
All great reminders. Well, Joan, Joe, and Amber, thank you for telling us about the Alliance, and all the best moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm Russ White. This is MSU Today.